Good morning, Kimberly. So yeah, like I said, we have a lot of content for this topic, organization leadership and culture building. So I am going to jump right in. Um, and here is the underlying truth to culture building in any organization, but in particular, the nonprofit sector. What is not defined is made up, right? If nothing is there in terms of a culture, then people will make it up. And in that space, it is not good. It's not good for a nonprofit. And we're going to dive into the reasons why. But in this particular session, we are going to talk about why nonprofits need to build a culture in their organizations. Like, why even bother, right? How to build culture, how to build trust, staff and volunteer buy-in through effective performance reviews, and then how to build leaders and increase your capacity through strategic professional development strategies. That's what we're going to take on today. I think all of you guys know me, but because this is a drop-in situation, I always like to introduce myself. My name is Amber Wynn. I am a philanthropreneur. I fuse the best of heart and commitment and passion with proven business practices to support the most amazing people in the world, and that would be you. I have been an executive director, a founder, a programs administrator. My largest grant, $3.2 million. I review proposals, and I think my position as a funder makes me unique. And it allows me to provide you guys with information from a funder's perspective. So a little bit about me, but in terms of what we're going to cover today, the reason why culture is important, number one, is because your people, whether that's your paid staff or your volunteers, they are your brand, right? They are your forward or public facing representation of your organization. And so without a culture, then it can be whatever somebody makes up, and that can be dangerous. So when we talk about your culture, it really has to do about your internal operations, but it also has to do with how um, how your community sees you, right? If it is a customer facing experience, how how are your people greeting the public? How are they treating them? Are they responsive? I know I've been to places where I sit there and wait and wait and wait, and people just don't even acknowledge me. That is the culture of the organization. Is the customer always right? Or in your situation, what are the steps to say, no, this is where we draw the line? All of that is a part of your culture. I talk to my kids all the time about how they appear, right? How do they appear? Because that's a representation of me. In a nonprofit organization, how people appear, their attire, their hair, their clothes, their hygiene, it is a representation of your organization. And guess what? All of that is intentional. All of that has to do with your culture, how you build it, how you um, reinforce it, right? So tell me why you think culture is important in a nonprofit. Could it be that nonprofits have a high turnover? The staff tend to wear many hats. The compensation tends to be lower than, the regular market rates. Nonprofits are mission driven versus compensation driven. All of these, honestly, all of them are the reasons why culture is important in a nonprofit. When you talk about ways to keep staff on when you're not able to compensate them at the level of everybody else out here in the world making millions of dollars just by doing TikTok videos like that, people stay with you because of your culture, right? No, I may not make a lot of money, but I know that my supervisor is really invested in me. They do things like pay for me to go to school, or we do staggered attendance, like 990 days or things like that. These are the things that contribute to high turnover or whether or not an organization is going to flourish, right? But what is culture in a nonprofit? Well, defined, an effective culture demonstrates the collective understanding of your nonprofit, right? If you have a culture, your front desk person all the way to the person out in the community, they 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 agree with, they co-sign, they understand, and they deliver on what your culture is. So if I had a staff, which I don't, I would my culture would be service oriented, right? Because I already know how much work it takes to be an executive director or nonprofit professional. I would want my staff to represent, it's okay. How can I support you? What can I do to help? It wouldn't be, well, that's your problem. And those things are communicated through your organization's culture. Culture is created intentionally. It's created. That means either you're going to put forth the effort to create it and define it, or it means that it's going to happen on its own. One way or the other, it is intentional. It's intentional because you chose to work on it and craft it and shape it, or it's intentional because you did not. But at the end of the day, culture must be actively maintained by leadership. It means that you have to work on it and you have to work on it consistently. I have people say to me all the time, I don't have time for that. That's why I'm hiring people who should know. I'm hiring people who should, yes, but as the executive director, you cannot leave that to chance. Because think about it. People have challenges just being in relationships with each other, like when you're in a relationship or if you're married. Now, if you try to multiply that times 10, 15 people, everybody's got their own way of engaging with people. Everybody's got their own way of talking to people, of training people, all of that. So it's going to be whatever is comfortable with them. With culture, you get to decide that. You get to decide whether or not your values are being articulated in action, right? And your nonprofit's values should line up with the actions that your leaders and staff take on day to day, right? Your culture is driven by your mission. That's your why. Your core values is how your why is operationalized. So in particular in companies, Fortune, 500, 200 companies, they'll always talk about their core values because they want people to know that they're about more than just money. As nonprofits, we tend to have more of an altruistic approach to what we do, but at the end of the day, there is a specific culture that is underlying in your organization, right? What are examples of how that culture is operationalized? Well, the way your money is used in the organization. Are you paying your staff? If you're like, oh, well, we have to be volunteer ran because all of our money is going specifically to the programs, that is a culture. It is a culture of, spending all of your money on direct services versus your staff. What is your philosophy on work-life balance? We expect you to be here from 8 to 5. If you arrive at 8:30, it's going to be a problem. Or is it we want you to be here 8 to 5? If you get here at 8:30, it's fine as long as you leave at 5:30. That is culture, right? Um, how it measures impact and success. Do you reward people who work straight through their lunch? Do you reward people who take on extra shifts? Do you punish people who say, I have to have work-life balance? That is culture. That is a culture that you create. Um, and what's important about culture in the nonprofit sector is it can give your staff or your volunteers a motivating sense of purpose. I can't pay you $50,000 a year, but look at the impact that we're making in this community. And if you're that type of person who share our values, that can motivate you to stay and grind with me until we start getting the money in that we need to pay you your value and your worth. But it could also give your staff the impression of bias and inconsistency. Oh, so Amber gets to come in at 8:30 and you don't say anything, but when I come in at 8:05, you're ripping me. Like that is culture. And that culture could be like, oh, watch out for that manager because they're not fair, or so and so is her favorite, right? You know the saying, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. I have had people say to me for all of my adult life, I love that job. I just couldn't stand my manager. She was crazy. I've had quite a few of those. If I could have stayed in that job, I would have, because I love the work that I did. I love the community that I serve, but my supervisor drove me crazy. Can anybody relate to that? If you have a manager that knows it all, like they're a micromanager, or they avoid, conflict, if they won't listen to your input, if they have favoritism, right? Or if they're not a strong leader, that's going to impact the culture of the organization. If you're that person, if you're the know-it-all, if you're the micromanager, if you don't like to do conflict, that is going to impact your organization's culture. Because then what happens? Well, that creates a negative culture. People may be afraid to even offer any feedback because they know you're going to shut them down. Or if there's a manager that you've hired because you're working on this and they're doing that, if that manager um, is showing favoritism, there's going to be resentment, right? They're going your staff and your volunteers are going to start to feel unappreciated, and then the motivation is low. So it's it's important that you understand how important culture is in the output, in keeping good staff, in being able to hire staff, because after a while, you will get a reputation. But also it can go converse, right? You can have a manager that encourages input and provides clear direction and allows for growth. As a matter of fact, they mentor and they support staff and volunteers. And a person will say, oh, generally speaking, she's very fair. You don't have to worry about her, being biased or anything like that. They're a very strong leader. When you have those type of managers creating that type of culture, then there's loyalty that is created. I've had people who work for me when I was an executive director, and I know I wasn't paying them their worth, but I tried to do things like we had sponsors. So Nike would give us tennis shoes. I'm like, all right, it's time for us to go shopping. Go into the closet and get you some shoes, get some shoes for your baby. I know it's, school time or whatever. And they're like, really? Yes, absolutely. That creates loyalty. Motivation. When you have people on your team and you're allowing them to grow and try new things, that's going to motivate them to be loyal to you. It's going to give them a sense of fulfillment. There's going to be positive energy in the space. And those are the people who are going to go the extra mile. So when we talk about organization culture, it really is mission driven, right? It's about your organization values. It is supported. I say HR. Some of us aren't at that space where we even have an HR team, but it's human resources supported. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. It's a top down, reinforced way of doing business, right? Sometimes it is funder influence. Sometimes it's like, listen, this is what we need to be in order for us to receive this funding. But those top three for sure: mission driven, supported, and top down reinforced, right? So when we talk about culture, these are the things that we have to look forward to, right? How do you create culture? How do you create it? It's going to come down to training, right? Um, but the reality is it's going to be a positive or negative, and you get to determine that. You get to determine which way the pendulum swings. Everyone, of course, says they want a positive culture, a positive work environment. It comes from how you create it. Remember, if it's not defined, it will be defined for you, and that's not what we want. So through training, board training, remember, the board is responsible for the organization. Fundraising, they're responsible for paying for salaries, getting the money in. They're also responsible for the direction of the organization. So if you have a board that is disconnected, it's not in alignment with the values of the direct services, there's going to be, some issues there. If you have a board that's not fundraising, and now your executive director is like, well, I can't give you a raise. So you want to have board training so your board understands, listen, everything is tied to compensation. If you guys aren't fundraising, I can't pay my people. And that's why we keep having people leave the organization. Leadership training. I'm going to dive into leadership training deeper, but the bottom line is your leaders are the ones who set the tone for the organization's culture. And if it's just you, then it's you. You are setting the tone, right? Staff development. How do we get everybody on the same page? How do we have everyone understanding this is who we are and what we do? It comes through training. Everything comes through training. Some of us aren't at the place where we can pay staff, so we rely heavily on volunteers. That is perfectly fine. You are where you are, and if this is your business model, but the reality is if you have volunteers, they should be trained because they're human beings. They create a culture. I have gone to nonprofit organizations where the volunteers act like they were paid staff. Why? Because the executive director allowed them to get into that space. Oh, well, Jeannie's been around since we started and she kind of just does her own thing. No, no, that is the culture that you've created. Jeannie, thank you so much for your service, but this is our organization's way of operating. And so those things are important. Training across the board. And we're going to talk a little bit about how do you fund training when you don't have a lot of resources. Can you answer me this in the chat? Why do you think staff development is important in a nonprofit organization? A, because it improves employee retention. B, because it improves productivity. C, it helps to shape culture. Or D, it helps to identify skill gaps among employees and volunteers. And E, it helps to identify training needed to bridge the skill gaps. Anybody have any idea why you think staff development is important? Any of these? Yes, yes. Oh, yes. All of them. Absolutely. That was a real easy one, right? All of the above. Staff development training helps to do all of these, and we're going to dive into them right now. So let's talk a little bit about how culture is created. Culture is created through consistency. And we've said it before, it's either positive or negative. You can be consistently negative. You can consistently not do evaluations. You can consistently turn your head when there's conflict in the organization. That is creating a culture, but you create it through consistency. If you standardize processes, um, practices, if you standardize those things, then it helps to create a culture, right? What do I mean by that? Well, standardization creates the appearance of fairness. And I'm going to say the appearance because sometimes it's impossible to be 100% fair, right? Sometimes you have to make decisions that's, good for the organization. But when you standardize things like roles, for example, if everyone has a job description, then it's really easy to say, well, no, according to the job description, so and so and so and so is supposed to do this. But so and so and so and so is not because they're at a different classification. But sometimes, nonprofits get started, they're in the community and they don't have the infrastructural things like job descriptions. So I'll say, well, what does the job description say? Oh, we haven't, I know we've got to make those. Well, if you have job descriptions, then it's easier for you to say to another employee, hey, guess what? This is the job description. Everybody has one. This is what we're working off of. But if you don't, then it may appear as if things are not fair. In terms of processes, having standard operating procedures. This is the way we would address something as an organization. It is in the employee handbook, it's in our SOPs, and in the event where X, Y, and Z happens, this is how we procedurally will do it, right? To have that standardization creates a culture, it creates an expectation, and then it gives you the opportunity to refer to a process that has been established. And then finally, one of the most important ways of standardizing your culture is through employee performance evaluations. When we say to people, well, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and the next week, oh, and I need you to do LMNOP, and then the following week, like it creates this wishy-washy moving target. If you have standardized employee performance evaluations, then you can hold your staff accountable and they can hold you accountable, right? So it's not something that's made up today or something that's said as you walk down, an aisle. We review every year. We use it as an opportunity to support staff growth. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Let's look at job descriptions. The reason why job descriptions help to create culture is because it's in writing, right? People can, from day one, when you submit a posting saying, hey, we're hiring for this job at the snowy White Mountain Library, people understand right from the top, right? The description of the role. What is it that they're being held accountable for? They understand your culture, your values. They understand the duties of the role. These are what the goals are going to be based off of, right? So your first evaluation is going to be based off of what you will be doing. That's what we're going to hold you accountable for. In your job description, when we talk about culture, they also get to see what your culture is in terms of compensation. Is this position $17.50 to $20 an hour? Is it in alignment with my personal values? Like, I don't want to struggle. I want to do this job, but is this job going to pay me what I need to take care of my family? And then the skills needed for the role, that's under qualifications. Some of these things may be negotiable. Some of these things may be what you can set as a goal. Well, right now you have a high school diploma. We'd love for you to be certified in X, Y, and Z. So that is a goal. That is a personal goal that we are going to put on your evaluation for you to grow as a leader, right? So you can say, well, you've been with the organization for 2 years. I know you have a great, work ethic. We just need you to have these skills. So during our performance evaluation, we want you to take these training classes so that next year we can actually offer you a higher role, because we need you to have a certain set of skills. If you look at it from that position, then your performance evaluation helps to create the culture. Maybe this person is a good person, but they don't have the skill set, but you're working with them. You're saying, hey, we'll pay you for this training. They're going to be loyal to you. When they are out in the field talking about your organization, they're going to say, I love this organization. They've helped me grow. I've become a better leader. I've increased my skill sets, my knowledge. That's the type of culture you want to create. If you're doing none of these things, if you don't have a job description, people don't know what they're doing, people making stuff up, it is going to be a horrible culture. And when you need people to activate, they're going to be looking at you like this, because that culture has not been set up, right? Culture does a lot, right? So we mentioned standard operating procedures. What is that, and where do you find those? Well, oh, I'm pausing. Jude, yes, you are going to have access to this recording. I'm going to give you the email. You'll be able to email Madison, and they have the library of all of these recordings, not just this one, but the ones even before. So yes, you will definitely get this recording. Thank you for asking. So we're talking about SOPs, standard operating procedures. This is where you lay out for all of your new employees, your volunteers, what the processes are for your organization, right? Your employee handbook says, this is who we are as an organization. We believe in, equity. We believe in equality. We believe in all of that is detailed in your employee handbook. This is how we operate. In order for you to advance, you need to have been with the organization for at least 6 months. You need to have, gone through at least one performance evaluation. So people are clear about how they can navigate in your organization. If people don't know, well, how do I apply for that position? I don't know. It's just wonky. But if you have standard operating procedures, it's clear. Your culture is solid. Everybody knows what to do, when to do it, how to do it. If things go wrong, they know who to go to. What does your staff know if there's a problem? Who do they go to? Do they just automatically go to you? Or is there a process? Well, the first thing you have to do is tell your supervisor, there's a problem here. If they don't resolve it, then they go to her supervisor. And if she doesn't resolve it, then they go to the board. Like, all of these things are detailed in your employee handbook. So the culture is created through intentionality. The culture is created by having things standardized. Any questions on this so far? All right. That also applies to internal operations. So tracking and reporting is seen as an administrative duty, but tracking and reporting is also a part of your culture, right? We want to be able to prove what it is that we do, to prove that we've, been successful or making a difference. That comes from tracking and reporting. Some person may work for your job and be like, oh no, we're doing a great job. Don't, that's not our culture. Our culture is that we have documentation and that we can prove it. um, Payroll, um, your client impact, your accounting, your spending, when people come and go, all of these things in terms of your infrastructure have to deal with your culture. What do I mean by payroll? In my early days, I worked at an organization where, like, we were supposed to get paid on the 1st and the 15th, but some days we get paid on the 16th or the 17th. And I'm like, whoa, 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 what's going on? Like, my rent is due on the 1st, so I can't be getting paid on the 2nd and the 5th. Like, what's going on? But the culture was, well, because we're working with the government, sometimes the money's late. You're going to get it. You're going to get it eventually. And what they got eventually was my resignation, because I felt like if you can't pay me for the time that I've worked, then you're not respecting me as an employee, and it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work. I may get paid, I may not get paid, but the people who had been there for 5, 6 years, they were part of that culture. They're like, oh, we eventually get paid. I'm like, well, what do you do? Oh, we just have to have some reserves. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't. I can't. So the other thing is like accounting. When your staff sees, oh, they just bought this, brand new projector, and they just bought this, brand new van, but I haven't gotten a raise in 3 years. That is a part of the culture. Where are you spending your money? Where are you demonstrating your priorities are? That all is created, right? Um, you've heard the saying, one bad apple can spoil a whole. It is the same thing. You can have an amazing team, but one person comes in and they're complaining and they're talking about, oh my God, this is horrible, I didn't this, I didn't that. The next thing you know, another person's like, I know, I didn't get that either, and they did it, well, it must be this, and it must, and then it just kaput. It just goes to crap. If you have your culture established, a person will be able to say, no, that's not true. What you have to do is submit a request for X, Y, and Z, and there is a process for that. And they'll be like, oh, I didn't know that. Uh-huh. But that squashes that negative energy, that squashes the complaint. If there is no culture, if there is no process, then that complaining person is going to get somebody else to complain. Because you know what they say, misery loves company. So they're going to get another person, and and next thing you know, you've got a bunch of miserable people. However, if you create processes, expectations, and give people opportunity to grow, that changes. Let me give you an example. A lot of people, especially in the leadership roles, have challenges with performance evaluations. Oh my gosh, they're so tedious. Oh my goodness, they're so time consuming. I don't have time for that. I am, delivering programs. Here's the thing about performance evaluations. When I learned this as an executive director, I really started to look forward to doing them. Why? Because this is how you help your team to grow. In the evaluations, you set goals. You say, hey, Amber, I'm so happy to have you on my team. I want you to be happy to be on the team. That means, listen, I know I can't pay you the $80,000 that you're worth, but I know you're not going to be with me forever. What can I do to help you increase your skills so that that next job you're ready for? And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I don't have any leadership. Like, I have never supervised anybody. Great. So we're going to put down as one of your goals, supervising other people. Because in order for you to move from a coordinator to a manager, you need to have managed. Wonderful. So we set that goal. And over the course of the year, I make sure that there's an opportunity for you to supervise somebody. It could be interns, it could be one person, the front desk person. But what you feel is that I am trying to support you in your professional growth. That was the turning point for me for the performance evaluation. I help somebody improve their skills. I'm going to give them projects to do where they can lean into that skill building, and I'm going to provide them with training. I'm going to show you in a minute how this also helps to increase your capacity. But people understand, especially if they've chosen to work for your organization, that you may not be able to compensate them. But what else can you do? What else can you do to create a culture where people feel appreciated, valued, and supported? During the evaluation, you can say, okay, I am here to create leaders, right? I want you to move up in the organization. And if that's not possible, I want you to be able to transition into another organization that's going to value you, right? And so what you do is you say, okay, here are our initiatives for the next year. Is there anything in here that you see that might excite you? Would you like to take on a role? Like, here are our goals for the year. Number one, we want to increase our outreach. Number two, we want to improve our social media. Number three, we want to, I don't know, increase our individual donor base, and just have like 5 things. Is there anything here that you think you can contribute to? I'm looking at increasing your skills, something that you normally wouldn't do that you might want to do. Now, 2 things usually happen here. People will say, I got enough work, I'm not trying to do anything else, right? Or the second thing could be like, well, I don't know if I can take anything on. I'm kind of nervous. And you say to them during this evaluation, that's why we're doing it this way. That's why I'm here to support you through this whole process. If you know that you need more skills with accounting, I'm going to sit with you and I'm going to show you how we do the budget. And I'm not going to ding you on it, because that's not what an evaluation is. An evaluation is me helping you to become a better leader. So we are in partnership with. It's not punitive. A lot of times people use performance evaluations to punish people. You didn't do this, you didn't do this, you did this, so you don't get a salary increase. That doesn't build positive culture. Positive culture is, all right, what are we going to do? What are we going to accomplish? And here's the thing, when we get to capacity, you're going to see it. You want to make sure that their skills, that their leadership opportunities help to move the organization forward. So if they say, well, I think I want to become, a hair designer, and I want to, okay, but our mission is to help the unhoused. So unless you're going to be doing, hair for the unhoused, now I got my braid sticking out. It needs to align with our mission. And if she's like, listen, I've been going to cosmetology school, you're like, okay, well, create an initiative. Okay, one Saturday a month, we're going to do the hair of our unhoused individuals. Okay, well, that works. So she's going to bring people from her cosmetology school. That moves your mission forward. That is a project that she can take over. Guess what's going to happen? She's going to learn coordination skills. She's going to learn people skills. She's going to learn. So all of these things that she wanted to do, you're packaging them up in this project that is going to move your organization forward. So when you come back to the evaluation a year later, and you can say, okay, well, you took initiative. You said you wanted to do this project. You created the project. You saw it from beginning to end. I'm going to give you an exceeds. And so what that means is, okay, I think you're prepared. When we have the next opportunity for a leader, I can say, yes, you're ready to, because I saw you take this project from beginning to end. So if you look at it that way, like, how can I use this performance evaluation to demonstrate to my staff or to my volunteers that I am supporting them, their personal growth? Because sometimes you can't always compensate, but you can help a person see that you want to contribute to their growth professionally, personally, you know what I mean? Um, and as it relates to performance and assessment, we want to use it as a management tool to reinforce your organization's culture. And not only that, we want to protect your organization. You're supposed to do evaluations every year. Because if a person says, well, I didn't get evaluated, you fired me and I didn't get evaluated, it just opens up a whole can of worms. So there's multiple reasons for the performance evaluation. I'm focusing more on the culture building, on the leadership building, but there are some legal protections that come with that as well. Performance evaluations in terms of culture It is the backbone, right? It's how you support good leaders, but it's also how you weed out the bad leaders. I'm in California. We're a very litigious state, but just generally speaking, if you have your performance evaluation and people aren't up to par, it legally gives you an opportunity, even if you're at will. You don't want to, people say, oh, we're at will, I can let them go. Yes, you can, but that is a part of the culture. When people say, oh, she let go my cousin. What? She let what? She didn't do nothing. She didn't even get an evaluation. Like that is a part of the culture. So then people start getting scared and people, oh, well, she told the executive director that she felt that she was unfair. Next thing you know, she was fired, right? Because that is the culture. Now people are like, well, you better not talk to that executive director because she's going to fire you. What happened? So and so's cousin, right? So the evaluation allows for you to support good leaders. Amber, this is amazing. This is wonderful. I see you hit all of your goals. Let's look at how we can, improve your role. Do you want more responsibility? Do you want a new title? This is how we're going to figure it out in this evaluation. But also, if somebody's not doing their job, you have an opportunity with this performance evaluation to say, okay, you've got 90 days to get it together. And what that does is it shows the rest of your staff, oh, they didn't just let her go. No, they gave her 90 days. They gave her clear goals, what she needed to do. She didn't do it. So they let her go. Culture building, right? It also eliminates irregularities, so people saying, oh, well, so and so got a corrective action plan and they just let so and so go. No, you want everything to be consistent. You want questions and doubts to be removed because there is a standardized process in place. It also creates a culture of accountability. If I say to you, okay, here are our goals for the year, you know what you're reaching for. It's not this, oh, do what you want. And then when we get to the evaluation, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. You're like, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. If you have annual evaluations with those goals set, monthly, well, for me, and this is because I'm type A, I would bring my my evaluation goals every month. Okay, so we said that I was to accomplish this. I've done this, I've done that. Just to make sure that I was on the same page with my supervisor because I've been burnt before. But if you have that, then there is in place this culture of accountability, right? There are standards that are set. And here's the thing, you never want an employee to come into an evaluation and there is a surprise. You want to mess up a culture, then you you bring an employee into an evaluation and said, you get needs improvement here, needs improvement here. No one should be surprised. When you come into the evaluation, you've been meeting monthly, you're pulling out your goals and you're like, okay, you're not doing well. Let's track this. Let's do better next month. And you still not doing well. Let's do better. 90 days. When it's in the evaluation, it's like, well, we talked about this every month, but you just never did it. No surprises, no surprises. And then the performance evaluation also helps your organization to move forward. Why? When we talk about building leaders, your capacity is limited. You can't do all things. You may be doing it right now, bless your heart, which is why we're here to help give you more capacity. If you look at the performance evaluation as a way to help you move the organization forward, it's going to increase your capacity. For example, let's just say for a grant, you said we're going to do these 3 things, right? When you look at your staff or you look at your volunteers, you can say, okay, Amber is really good. She's got the gift of gab. So let's see if we can entice her to take on this initiative that's going to grow community outreach. So here we are. Hey, Amber, I know that, you're really gifted, orally, and you can talk to people. And what do you think about taking on this initiative? And I'd be like, me? Little old me? Yes, I'd love it. Okay. So you see there that then has been removed off your plate. That initiative is going to help you move your organization forward because this is what you promised in your grant. A lot of times, my amazing executive directors, I got to do this, I got to do that. If you just take 7 minutes, look at who your people are, what their skills, their talents, what their gaps are, right? You put them in positions where they can strengthen those weaknesses, capitalize on those strengths, that's going to increase your capacity. So it all works together. It's just we're so busy with the we all do it. I did it when I was an executive director. Get this done, get this done. Just pause though. You can help move your organization forward through your performance evaluations, through the culture building, right? If you see this as coaching and not a punitive process, if you see this as, let me help grow my volunteers, let me help, people look at volunteers as if they're doing you a favor. Sometimes people volunteer because it's safe. It's safe to learn a new skill that's not tied to dollars, right? You're contributing because this nonprofit doesn't really have the skill set or doesn't have the person, and they're willing to allow you to try. So if you look at it as coaching, either coaching your volunteers or coaching your staff, it's going to help you develop the team you want to have, right? I need someone who's going to take charge of this. I need someone to, during your performance evaluations, you're kind of crafting that. You're saying, hey, you kind of want to do this, don't you? And they're like, well, I kind of do, or I'm not sure. I got you. You do it, and I'm going to have so-and-so back you up, or I'm going to back you up, or we're going to meet every month, and you can talk about how you feel about that. And I can coach you on how to be a better leader, but I need you to take over this one thing, right? So I love the part of building leaders. I know that my staff, they're not going to stay with me forever. I don't want them to. I want them to grow so much that another organization wants to pick them. It doesn't help me in terms of my organization, but I love my staff enough for them to be able to grow, right? And when they're out in the community, guess what they do? They take care of me. They're with another organization. We want to partner with Amber's organization because she takes care of her people, not only externally, meaning the clients, but her staff. And that's how you grow exponentially as an organization. It's through collaborations. So if you create the leaders that you want, they go out into the community, they are going to take care of you. That's how I got this contract. I was teaching a course at Antioch University, nonprofit management, a master's program. And one of my students then went off. She's working with the Latino Coalition. When they're like, hey, we're looking for consultants, she's like, I know, Amber can do that. So it's you're growing your people, you sprinkling them out into the world, and they're going to come back and they're going to help you grow. People are like, oh my God, she's good. I can't lose her. I can't lose her. Well, you do what you can to keep her, but you always nurture her. You always nurture him so that when they do leave, they don't leave you. They come back. And that is a part of their culture building. Any questions? Anybody? No? All right. Look at the performance evaluation from the employee's perspective. This is important, right? As we said before, no surprises. You don't want your employee to walk into the evaluation not already knowing pretty much what they're going to get. They know because you've been having these conversations. At the onset of the year, you said, okay, in partnership, we're going to create your goals together. Here are the 3 goals that we're going to accomplish over the next year. Here are the ways you're going to accomplish them. Every month, you bring out that evaluation. How are you doing on this goal? Do you need some support? So by the time we get to the year end, we already know. We already know. But you want your employee to see it as an opportunity to clarify your expectations, for them to see that you see them as a leader and that their role is to help them grow, right? It's also an opportunity for self-reflection. There's always a section there when they're like, well, I didn't accomplish this because X, Y, and Z. That is their opportunity to sit and say, why didn't I accomplish this goal? Well, the organization shifted. And when the organization shifted, my role shifted. Therefore, this goal was no longer. And so then you get to see, ooh, yeah. Right? But they could also say, well, I spent more time on my pet project and I didn't do the things that I also was supposed to do. So you're having the opportunity to be participatory, right? Hey, Jude, I love your questions. Can you share resources to develop performance evals? Most definitely. And then also you get to set the basis for past and future measurement. With the evaluation, You can say, okay, in 2021, here is where you were on attendance. You sucked. You were late 80% of the time. 2022, you got better. You were only late 10%. This year, you were not late at all. Look at this growth. Look at this growth. This meant that you took accountability. You can do that with evaluations, right? You can see over time how a person improves or how they decrease. What's going on, Amber? I see here that you've been absent quite a few. I'm looking at your previous evaluations and you had stellar attendance. Oh, I'm going through a divorce. Ah, okay. Let me support you. Let's change your time. Instead of you getting here at 8, since you no longer have the support, how about you get in at 10 and you leave at 6? Now, guess what culture that created? This person is really concerned about me. It's not just about me clocking in or whatever. They want to make it work. So now when something happens, hey guys, this grant didn't get renewed. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to reduce it. It's okay. Because guess what? You did the same for them. That is culture building, right? But you can only do that if you reach an agreement. If you guys sit down together and say, here are the goals, the 3 goals that we're going to shoot for. Here's the program I'm going to put you in charge of. Here's what I'm going to remove from you because you feel like this doesn't, is in alignment with your position. But those conversations have to happen, and they happen during the performance evaluation. Um, from the supervisor's perspective, which is probably going to be you, right? You want to make sure that everything is above board. There's nothing worse than having a supervisor come to the performance evaluation, not having even looked at the goals, right? If they base their evaluation off of the last 3 months as opposed to the whole year. I've had supervisors do that. And I'm like, because here are our goals. Why are you evaluating me on something that's not even a part of the goal? Oh, well, as necessary, that clause. No. I'm feeling a certain kind of way right now because we have clear goals and I've met these goals. As a matter of fact, I've exceeded these goals. So what's going on? So you want to make sure that the goals that you set for your staff, first of all, ties into your departmental goals. Because why are people doing things that's not moving your goals as a leader for your department forward? And then ultimately the organizational goals. If you are not the founder, if you are the program manager, if you are the hired executive director, these performance evaluations will help you in terms of your growth in the organization, right? If you see, oh, I've got Amber, I've got Allie, I've got Kimberly, how can I position them so that the organization moves forward? Because if the organization moves forward, you're going to look good to the board. If you're doing everything mediocre and you're doing it all on your own versus having your staff move you forward, giving you the opportunity to think about new and innovative things. If you're doing everything, you can't be innovative because you're just doing everything, right? So looking at things like attendance and um, client feedback. If Amber is presenting, she's out in the community, direct services, bring in the evaluations and you can say, hey, remember at the beginning, we said you were uncomfortable with public presentations. I've got your evaluations. They said you were amazing. High five. Boom. I knew you could do it. You just needed to practice. And do you see how? And they're like, yes, I know. I didn't think I could do it. Right? Building culture, a supportive culture, right? You're going to get feedback from their coworkers, from vendors and things of that nature to reinforce whatever your position is as a supervisor. Here's the other thing. When we talk about building culture, it's not advised that a supervisor, whether you are the executive director, and I mean if you're the founder or whatever, that you do those things publicly because it creates the culture, right? Oh, well, don't say that because she's going to check you. No. When do you do it? You do it during your monthly reviews, or if it's egregious, or right, you start laying the paper trail. Hey, I've got some reports about X, Y, and Z. Would you like to share with me what happened? Right? Sometimes people will say on an evaluation, 5 people said that you were X, Y, and Z, but you never talked to them about it. The culture that you're creating with that is that you don't trust your staff. If you say, hey, I got, some complaints and I wanted to talk to you about it. What's going on? I had a supervisor say to me, Amber, people have been complaining about you being out in the common area, talking, just talking. And I said, and did you tell them that I don't have a budget? Because if you told them that I didn't have a budget, then they would understand that I'm meeting with key shot callers to move my program forward because you didn't give me a budget. She was like, I'm like, so you've taken what they said and you've put it on my evaluation. You didn't even have the conversation with me. If you had the conversation with me, then I would have explained to you, I'm trying to accomplish the goals you set for me without a budget. It was corporate sponsorship. I was supposed to be getting in front of these corporations to get sponsorship for our kidney walks, but I didn't have a budget. So I was hitting the executive assistants for all of the key VPs, getting their access to their Rolodex. And so I said, that's why I was out in the open. I wasn't ashamed. I was doing my job the best way that I had without your support. So it's important that during these evaluations, you're in conversation. You're not accusing, you're asking, right? And if they aren't following the recommendations to improve, now you have it documented, right? You can terminate them for cause, even if it's at will. You don't want to let people go in a nasty kind of way. You want it to be above board. You want it to be professional, right? Sometimes you have to do immediate terminations. Sometimes people do things so egregious, you have to call them into the office and say, here is your check. And this person is going to escort you out. How is that going to land with the rest of your staff? How is that going to land? If Amber Wynn is friends with Joy and you let Joy go, no explanation, no email, no nothing, guess what? You just fired my friend. So I'm going to be at the cooler saying, honey, you better watch your back because I don't know about them. They just let Joy go. She was a hard worker. Da-da-da-da. They didn't know that Joy was embezzling. They didn't tell all that. But they also did not create the environment. So they let Joy go. Sorry, Joy. They let Joy go, right? Next thing you know, you send out an email, dear staff, just wanted to let you know where there's going to be some staff changes effective, today. Joy Armstrong is no longer with the organization. If you have any questions, we're following HIPAA law. She has a right to her privacy, blah, 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 blah. But you let them know somebody is gone. When I was at DaVita, I found out people weren't gone when I would email them, and the email would bounce back. I'm like, we lost somebody else. But that was the culture because they didn't tell us, right? You want to be transparent. You want to say, hey, this person is no longer with us. We're going to do a job search. If you are interested in the position or you know somebody who's interested in the position, let us know. But you don't want people to be like, well, why did they get let go? Well, why did they get let go? Am I next? That is the culture you create by the way that you terminate people, right? It's important that you understand how that lands, right? As I said before, despite being at will and having the legal right to let people go without cause, how you terminate employees impacts your organization. You can really say, hey guys, we didn't get this grant renewed, and so we have to reduce staff. It has nothing to do with favoritism or whatever, but we really believe in loyalty. So the person who's hired last will more than likely be the one who's let go. But you've explained why they're being let go, right? We have to reduce our staff by 50%. It's not something that we want to do, but it's something that we have to do. And because this person, was on the original grant, we have to keep them. Maybe they're not as good as the person on another one, but if you explain some of the things, it eliminates the gossip that goes on, right? Layoffs are the worst when it comes to culture destroying, right? Because no one believes that they should be let go. But it's as a leader, you have to do it. And so when a person may have to be let go and it's a friend, you just have to deal with those things out front, right? So when we talk about culture, It's just important. As I said, you want to make the announcement. You want to give them as much notice as possible. Some leaders will be like, well, I'm not going to tell them, because if I tell them I'm going to let them off, let them go in 90 days, they're going to quit now. And then I'm going to be left with nothing, right? But if you let them go at the end of the 90 days on that Friday at 5 o'clock, how do you think the rest of your staff or your volunteers are going to feel? They're going to be like, well, that was crappy. She let her go without any warning. She got 3 babies. So it's just important to understand that when you're talking about creating culture, being transparent, giving people information that they need, letting the board of directors know, creating an FAQ, all of those things help people to feel appreciated, valued. And then when you have conversations, you can come up with different ways. Maybe if there's a budget cut, you don't have to lay people off. Can people say, hey, I agree to take 1/3 cut in my salary because 1/3 cut in my salary is better than no salary at all? Or can I be furloughed? Or is it just temporary for 30 days because we have another grant that's coming in? That is a culture that you create. People understand that you're trying not to let them go. I had a situation where that was the case. We had to furlough somebody. We know this grant is coming in. It is June 30th. It's not going to start till September. We can furlough you until then, or you can find another. No. I'm fine for 30 days. Like, go ahead, let me do that or whatever. It's how you build your culture, how you communicate. Some people will just be like, we got to let you go. We didn't get the grant. Sorry. And that's the image that you're putting into your community and into your staff. So here's the exciting part: staff development. Staff development strengthens nonprofits. Well, okay, Amber, you gave away the answer. It's important because at the end of the day, it increases capacity. All of these other things are important, and staff development definitely does these things. But for me, because my purpose is to support you, staff development is most important because it helps to increase your capacity. It does develop new leaders. It does increase efficiency. It does help to create standardization and consistency, and it does increase output. But more importantly, staff development helps you to increase your capacity, and that's what I want. When you have a staff training, right, your standard is set, right? Your standard has been created. So every month we have staff development training. We go over the mission, we operationalize the mission, and it's all by job description, right? During the evaluation period, I get to assess, you get to assess your team. What is it that they can do? What is it that they cannot do? Once you have that, then you can then go into staff development. Amber Wynn is amazing with the gift of gab, but she sucks with reporting. So for her development, I am going to either partner her with a buddy who has an amazing tracking system so she can learn it. I'm going to send Amber to training so that she can improve. I'm going to give her more opportunities to practice. But when we talk about staff development, it's about what is the best for the organization, right? If Amber could just turn in her reports on time, then that means we could get paid on time. That's best for the organization. If I invest in Amber, she's got these really great skills, but if I just invest, train her on how to do this one thing better, it's going to help us move forward. Do you understand? So when we talk about staff development and increasing your capacity, helping your staff to increase their skills, accomplish their goals, right? It's going to help you accomplish your mission. And at the end of the day, I don't want you guys doing all things. I know you're doing them already, but through staff development, it can, increase your capacity so that you're not doing all the things. Okay. All right. How to build culture and capacity. Develop good leaders. You develop good leaders, you're going to build a positive culture, but you're also going to increase your capacity. Why? Because your leaders will be consistent in setting goals, not only for themselves, but for their projects, for their volunteers, right? And for their direct reports. They will be able to train their volunteers, their leaders, Um, the messaging will be the same. If you're developing good leaders, that means you're investing in them, you're training them, right? And so you guys are all going to say the same thing. So your culture is solid because it's standardized, because it's consistent, right? The actions that are being taken are the same. The worst thing in terms of culture building is to have one person do one thing one way and then have another person do it another way. And if they're leaders, it's even worse because it's divergent. We want everybody on the same page. We want everybody saying the same things. We want everybody delivering in the same way. Now, we all have our own personalities. Some people are outgoing, some people are reserved. That doesn't matter. If at the end of the day, we're all following the same process, then that's going to create a solid culture. And during the evaluation process, when we're looking at it, we can say, ooh, we missed the mark here. Let's make a tweak. Or here you hit it, let's repeat it, rinse and repeat. But it all comes down to your leaders being able to be held accountable and to hold their team accountable. The other thing is when you have good leaders, you don't have to do all the work, right? When you have good leaders, when you have standardized practices, other employees don't end up doing the work. That one is huge. So you hire Amber. Amber's cute, but Amber can't hold her weight. So now Candace is upset. It's like, what did they hire her for? They could have just given me her paycheck. She's not even doing the work, but it's impacting me. So I have to do her work so that I can do my work. Those things impact culture because now Candace is going to be resentful, right? She's doing Amber's work. So when we have staff development training, it allows you to strengthen people's skills. It allows you to see the gaps, like what's missing. You know, Candace is going to say in that training, well, it would be nice if we could be cross-trained so that everybody can do everybody's job in the event of an absence. Because I find that I can't even take my vacation days because when people aren't here, I'm the only one that knows how to do everything, and that's not fair. Those are the things you learn in your staff development, and you take note of that, and then that's what you train on. Great recommendation, Candace. That's right, we're going to cross train, right? But staff development is how you ensure that you accomplish your goals and that you make an impact. If you've got all this infighting, if Candace is pissed off and Joy is gone and Allie's like, I don't know who's coming or going, you know, then you have chaos. Guess what you're not doing? You're not making an impact in your community. So when we talk about leadership development, we talk about capacity building, we talk about how do you create this culture? This is the way that you do it. Other things to look at when we develop good leaders and we have staff training is that it saves you money. You invest in these people, and then these people will turn around and help you to save money, right? Here's a practice. Our mission is to steward the resources of our funders. So before you make a purchase, you know, you're good to make a purchase for anything under $100. But if it's over $100, we just ask that you run it by our accountant person because another, you know, department may have purchased it or whatever. So that is a practice, but that is a practice that creates culture. And in that culture, you can potentially save money because there's not waste. Um, you can ensure that your learning strategies meet the business needs. You're not doing things that don't move the mission forward. All of these things come together, culminate to make sure that you meet your mission. Now, I talked a little bit about what happens in a monthly staff meeting. Well, if you're talking about building culture, here are the things that should happen in your monthly staff meeting. You're going to discuss topics that shape the organization's culture, both inward and outward facing. What do I mean by that? Well, inward could be, well, it's important that Amber comes in on time because every time she's late, then guess what? Brenda has to take her clients. And Brenda's tired of it because Brenda's trying to do her work. So that is a conversation, attendance, and how it impacts the rest of the staff. Because Amber didn't know. She walked in, her stuff was done. It's because Brenda did it. So during the staff meetings, we're going to talk about how can we best support each other? What does that look like? How does what you do impact your coworkers? And Amber would be like, oh, baby, I'm sorry. I didn't even know. Thank you so much. So either one or two things are going to happen. I'm going to start to come on time. And if I can't because I have to drop my kid off, then we're going to shift my time. But guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to take on some of Brenda's responsibilities, right? Now it's a culture of equity. Outward facing. When people come into our office, the first thing I want you to do is smile and say, thank you for coming to da 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 da. We're so excited to have you here, as opposed to when somebody comes in and you just ignore them because you're on your phone. No, the first thing we want anybody to come through this door, we want them to feel welcome. So that's outward facing. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, everybody understands what is going on in the organization, the expectations. In the monthly staff meetings, that's what you're going over, right? Topics that may impact revenue, grant management. Okay, I'm talking to my coordinators now. You guys haven't been turning in your reports. And because you haven't been turning in your reports, I haven't been able to submit the invoice. So we need to get on point. We've been giving you guys to the 30th. We're going to push it back. You need to turn in your reports by the 25th. That's going to give me 5 days to get the work done. So, just really being open and transparent. Sign-in sheets, receipts, things that are going to allow you to move the organization forward. And then finally, you may designate one of your staff meetings for a person to actually do a presentation. Maybe Allie's like, oh, I'm kind of nervous. You're great. Well, let's give you an opportunity to practice your speaking skills in a safe environment. Safe meaning you are in a community of coworkers who know you and love you and support you. The more you practice when you're out there with strangers, then it won't be as daunting. So, give them an opportunity to practice their PowerPoint, their Excel skills, critical thinking, listening, communication. All of these things happen in your monthly staff meeting if the culture has been set up. And this is also when we talk about public facing. Sometimes, especially with this generation, I know I'm dating myself. I'm Gen X, y'all. They come in not dressed the way that we were taught to dress. Well, at specific times, you can take them from where they are to where you want them to be. That is about culture. When I was actually executive director, I would talk to my girls. I'm like, hey, this is Girls Inc. and we're about that business. So that skirt right there, that is so cute for clubbing. But when you come into an executive space, we want your skirts to be below your knees. That's just the expectation. But I'm making sure that everybody in the office is following that, right? It could be, we didn't want strapless, right? Because like they were coming in strapless. I'm like, gotta have sleeves, short sleeves, whatever. But that is the culture that we set. Because what happens when a mother brings her daughter in and she sees somebody out there strapless and she's like, do I want my daughter in this space? It's about the culture. You set it and then you enforce it. But during staff development is where you take them, you meet them where they are, and then you take them to where you want them to be. And you're doing it without, pointing people out. This is a part of our culture. This is a part of our training. This training is going to cover attire. Next month's training is going to cover, sign-in sheets. The one after that is going to cover, and you're creating consistency, right? Here's the other thing. For those of you who don't have paid staff, it is what it is. It's the nature of the beast. The problem with volunteers is that they're unpaid. And so with that comes a low commitment. They're going to come when they can. We have some amazing volunteers who are probably more loyal than staff members, but from a funder's perspective, they still require attention. If you put on a grant, and I'm telling you as a funder that your organization is volunteer driven, if you don't have a program in place, it's going to knock you down on terms of eligibility. You can have volunteers, but you need to have a volunteer program, because what a volunteer program says is that you create structure. You have job descriptions. You have a contracted time commitment. If you are my volunteer, you're going to commit for 6 weeks or a month or 12 weeks, whatever the program is. You sign a contract, and that's what you say to your funder. Yes, we do have a volunteer driven organization, and we have a volunteer program where we onboard them, right? We orient them to our culture. So everybody's on the same page. We let them know what our processes are. If you have issues with a client, then you need to go to the paid staff. You don't handle it yourself. If you're having issues with the client's parents, here's the process. When a funder sees that you have a program, a volunteer program in place, it changes everything, right? You have job descriptions, you have program descriptions, you have contracts, changes the whole thing. And when you train your volunteers, there's a culture that's established. Sometimes people just let volunteers come in, and people have big personalities, right? And they may say, well, that's not, well, I don't know what to tell you. No, 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 that's not the correct answer for our clients. You've been oriented. What you tell them is, I'm not sure about that, but let me find out and I'll come back to you. That is the culture. But if you don't have a training, people will be like, well, I don't know. Or I think you just need to go over there. No, we don't give erroneous information. We say, let me find out. Can you have a seat? I'll go ask somebody. That is the culture. But that culture is only transmitted through the training. So that's why it's really important. It is an investment, but it has this huge dividend, like for um, your capacity and for your organization. I'm going to spend 2 minutes on how to fund staff development training because I want to give you the opportunity to ask me any questions. But the number one question that I typically get, especially from my startups, is I can't afford, staff development training. Like I can barely afford to pay my staff. This is how you leverage your leadership opportunities. You find what it is that each one of your staff members does really well, right? If Amber Wynn develops PowerPoints really well, then okay, Amber, as a part of your leadership development, I want you to teach the rest of the staff how to develop PowerPoints. Boom. What's happened there? You've given her an opportunity to teach. So that's one expense you don't have. But then you've also given her an opportunity to present as a leader and to share knowledge. The sharing of the knowledge, the fact that you asked her to share makes her feel important, right? Right? And you're going to include it in your performance evaluation. Amber presented 3 workshops on leadership, that goes towards, yes, you are an amazing leader. You are developing skills, right? You've cross-trained, whatever. So that is not an additional expense. You find out what every person's top 3 skills are, and during those monthly trainings, you say, okay, the last part of our whatever, or the first part, wherever you want to put it, Amber's going to share with you how to make PowerPoints. Leadership development. Everybody's learned something. You haven't invested $1 in that. The other thing you can do is access your community resources, right? Other organizations that share the same mission, or like the community foundations are really big. Like right now in LA, it's, homelessness. So that they will provide training on homelessness, how to deal with them, how to access information. So you can look for community training. Elected officials will usually put things on. Um, or you can partner with other organizations that share your mission. Say, for example, Girls Inc. would partner with Girls Club of America and Girls Club of LA and say, hey, we want to do some leadership training. Let's split the cost 3 ways. We can host it here at my place because my place is the largest. You paid 1/3 for your staff. I pay 1/3 for my staff. And, Girls Club of Compton will pay 1/3. So now you've got these shared costs. So you're not paying out. You're like, I can't afford it, but can you afford 1/3 of it? Right? Well, you can host it at your home office, right? You can charge fees, open it to everybody, not just 3. You're like, hey, 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 we're part of a collaborative. I'm going to bring in this amazing speaker. I'm charging $75, right? If you have all of your collaboration, you may even make some extra dollars. They all pay $75, and it really only cost them 25. Now you've got an extra stream of revenue. I'm just saying. The other thing you can do is called capacity building, and it's becoming more and more popular. Put it in your request for a grant. We need to grow our organization. The only way we can do it is through training, professional development training, you know? And then the last thing is free stuff. Nonprofitready.com, they have a grant from a foundation, and they have all of these free courses for nonprofits. You know, they want to make sure that every nonprofit leader has an opportunity to grow their skills. So until you have the money, you can say, all right, as a part of your evaluation, I want you to take, you know, these 3 workshops to increase your skills, and it's for free, right? Google has some, LinkedIn has some, but you want to include these um, trainings in their evaluation because you want them to increase their skills. They can pick, I want you to pick 3 topics, 3 courses. We're going to put them in your evaluation. That's going to help them grow. And then another low cost option is you send 1 staff member to become certified. Like they're going to go and they're going to come back and they're going to get certified in it, but they're going to share their knowledge and experience with the rest of the staff. You've invested in that person, but they also have come back and shared that information, right? You can also ask a professional to donate their services. As a 501c3, especially in this environment where people are like tightening up their belts, it benefits a consultant to write it off. They may not get the money up front, but it's going to help them on their taxes because they're going to donate their services to your organization. You're a 501c3, so it's a tax benefit. They will see that as an in-kind donation. They get to write it off on their taxes. Everybody's happy. That's really one of the things that you can leverage when the economy is bad, because people aren't spending on training, right? But you can say, hey, we don't have the funds to pay you, but we can, you know, offer you a tax write-off, and they'll be like, bet. Yeah, so plan for it in the budget, capacity building, professional development. And then the final thing is staff development helps to reduce employee turnover. Why? Because it helps to clarify expectations. It helps to identify the gaps in your leadership and give you opportunities to strengthen manager skills. And it gives employees a safe place to discuss the issues so that you don't have conversations going over there. It's up in the open. Everybody hears the same answer, right? And then finally, it provides an opportunity for team building and developing solutions. You're not the only one coming up with the solutions. Everybody gets to talk about it together. This is just a recap. And then finally, for those of you who missed it, I think it was like 2 sessions ago, if you aren't sure about culture building, Simon Sinek on YouTube has this amazing 7-minute video on your why, and it can help you with creating your culture. So check that out. And so that's it. You will be receiving an evaluation and an opportunity to join my newsletter. I am going to go find the email for you to get copies of the video because you have to email Madison. But while I do that, does anyone have any questions? I know there's a lot of content, huh? Anyone? Video. No one has questions? Joy, you will get a copy, you can get a copy of the video, but not the slide decks. Is that sufficient though? Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Jude. um, where is this, Richard? All right. I'm going to send it out to you guys because for some reason. All right, there it is. Got it. Okay. If you would like a copy of the video, this is who you will email. And not just for this one, but future past ones and future ones as well. All right. Well, that's all I have. I'm going to sit here just in case anyone has a specific question. But thank you so much. And I hope to see you